This is a giant DIY advent calendar. I built it myself in just a few hours and the whole thing cost less than $100. Why did I do this? We'll get there. But first, let me show you how I did it, starting with the materials.
Step 1 is building a base, and for that, we're using plain old 2x4s. The most important part of 2x4s is that they don't look like this. You want them as straight as they can possibly be. That's a little bit better. There we go. That's perfect. Knots are not good, but they're not the worst thing in the world. Here's a complete list of all the materials I used to build this if you want to take a screenshot or come back later. These 2x4s are 7 feet long and low quality, which means they're cheap. The first thing we need to do is cut them up. I'll take one 2x4 and divide it into 4 equal pieces. Then I'll use a speed square to draw a straight line, and next we'll need a saw. I'm using a circular saw, but you can really use any saw. A jigsaw, a table saw, not a seesaw. And here's a complete list of all the tools that I used. Again, take a screenshot or come back later if you want to take another look. Clamp that firmly to your dining room table and do your best to cut straight lines. We're not building a house here, so we don't have to be super accurate. But try to make each of these 4 pieces as even as possible. Are these perfect? No, but they're good enough. Next, we're going to mark the middle of each of the 4 pieces. Again, we'll use a speed square to make a straight line. Grab whatever nails you've got on hand. These aren't meant for this job, but they'll do the trick. Clamp your uncut 2x4 and one of the cut pieces to your dining room table. Tap in 2 nails to secure the pieces. Flip it over and repeat the process. We'll do the same thing with those 2 remaining boards. Those lines we drew earlier will make this easy to line up by eye. Let's talk briefly about why I'm doing this admittedly silly project. For the past few years, this has been my Christmas tree. The shape is right. It's even got an ornament, but it's not very festive. My girlfriend has been begging for a real Christmas tree the entire time. She also wants an advent calendar. So today, she's getting her wish. Not only that, but we can take care of 2 birds with 1 stone. For the tree itself, I'm using 1/8" hardboard. It has some distinct advantages over plywood, like being lighter and cheaper, but it's got some disadvantages as well. You'll see more of that later. The standard 4-foot by 8-foot size is perfect for this application. Throw that on your dining room table and measure out the tree. The trunk of my tree is going to be 2 feet tall and 1 foot wide. Everything comes to a point at the top. Take your time with this step. As they say, measure once, cut twice. Should use eye protection. Actually, I think it's measured twice, cut once. When you're done cutting, run a bit of sandpaper along the edges to smooth things out. You know, there's some irony in doing this for my girlfriend. I think she'd be pretty furious if she found out this is what's going on. Anyway, this is a tree. Confirmed. Measure twice, cut once. Obviously I made a mistake, so I'll take a foot off the bottom of this tree. That should make it fit. Now that everything's cut out and fits, I can just use some white finishing nails to connect the 2. As you're building, remember to not take this too seriously. This is supposed to resemble a tree, and trees have imperfections. To hold each chocolate, I'm just going to use a solo cut. Throw the chocolates inside. Put tissue paper on the outside. And it's that easy. Now for the hard part. Each of these solo cups needs a hole in the tree. And for that, I'm using a 3.5" hole saw. Turns out, it's not super easy to cut through hardboard. That and this hole saw is meant for metal. If you try this yourself, just get plywood. Now look, I said this in a moment of weakness. Hardboard has some advantages, but it's got some disadvantages as well. Both will work if you want to use them. To clean up those jagged edges, all it takes is a utility knife and a little bit of sandpaper. Again, these don't have to be perfect. We'll cover them up later. Might not look like much now,
In fact, it looks horrible. But the next few steps are going to make this look like an actual tree. At the moment, the biggest issue with this tree is just that it's not green. So let's fix that.
The professionals amongst us might be thinking, Rust-Oleum is not recommended for indoor use. The vapors can be harmful, and it's really only needed on metal. Well, those people are correct, but it's what I had on hand, so it's what I'm using. If you're buying it or have acrylic craft paint on hand, that is a much better option. Normally when you're painting, visible brushstrokes are the enemy. But in this case, they're your best friend. They help give this tree the appearance of having pine needles. While that green paint is still wet, go back and add some streaks of white. Use your brush to blend this in as much as you can. Mixing the white with the green will add dimension and give this a snowy, Christmassy feel.
I'm gonna let that paint dry overnight and come back tomorrow morning to put the finishing touches on this Christmas tree. Good morning.
Most advent calendars only have one piece of candy for each day. That's a mistake. But so is having too much candy. You want a nice variety while having at least one piece of candy for everyone in your household. And if candy's not your thing, feel free to get creative here. Just like before, I'm going to take a piece of tissue paper and cover each cup. Wrap it up nice and tight and insert into one of the holes on the tree. A little bit of tweaking is necessary to get the tissue paper tight. That'll help you punch through when it comes time to open it. The cup and tissue paper combined won't need anything else to help them stay in there. The idea here is of course that these look like ornaments on a normal Christmas tree, so a variety of tissue paper colors makes it a little nicer. No tree is complete without a skirt around the bottom, and in this case, that helps us cover our somewhat unsightly stand. Don't have a skirt? Feel free to cover the base with presents. And for the cherry on top, Christmas lights. I've opted for a green, white, and red variety, which I think looks pretty nice. But choose whatever lights, decorations, or ornaments make Christmas special for you. I'll show you what this all looks like in a second, but there's one more very important point. If this were a traditional advent calendar, I would number each of the cups. But I strongly recommend that you don't do that. It makes it so much more fun to get to pick something out every day. It's like having the surprise of Christmas morning every single day in December. All this in just a few hours over the course of a couple days for under $100. If you have a favorite ornament like me, you should be able to find some space for that too. Alright, that's enough delay. What does this thing really look like? If you enjoyed this video, I know you'll like this one as well. And subscribe to see what I get up to next.